All right. Hi, you guys. It is my pleasure to introduce to you this fluffy, white, wonderful miracle animal that is a clown and makes both Chocolate's life and my life every day funny. I wish that I could show you what he and Chocolate do, and for those of you who are sending me photographs of your gorgeous cats. So many people have so many beautiful, wonderful animals, and I think that's a part of life we don't understand. When if we all knew each other and we knew how much we loved our animals, and our animals gave us so much soul energy and soul food every day. And so right now I was going to show you both Chocolate and Fluffy, and Chocolate is downstairs, and they know that on Wednesday nights that I may be coming and picking them up, so it's becoming a game. But this little guy tonight, he just jumped up like, okay, it's my turn. So I am glad to introduce Fluffy again to those of you who write him and write Chocolate, and I'm so glad that we're all sharing at that level. And it looks like he's going to go to sleep. So I'm going to put him down on the floor for a little while, because I'm telling you, since last week, January 2nd to today, January 9th, in 1 week, I don't remember a time of getting so many emails, phone calls, headlines, breaking news of a variety of subjects. And I'm going to start tonight with some news updates of the high strangeness. And then I will go to Lori for some questions and answers with you. And look at this little guy. He's going completely asleep. It's never happened before. Oh, baby. Well, you know what? I'm going to just let you down, and then I'm going to do some news. All right. Now, while he may jump up on that library case, bookcase behind me. This morning at 6:30 a.m. in the early morning darkness on the East Coast, a high school art teacher was on her way to work traveling south on Route 179 at the border of Marlborough Township and Freehold Borough in New Jersey. I got a phone call about a couple of hours after this from her father wanting me to know what happened. And so it was a clear, starry sky before sunup, and I asked her if she, as an art teacher, if she could send some illustrations of what she saw and experienced this morning. And she said it was that dark before sunup that happens in winter, and suddenly in that dark sky she saw something moving fast east to southwest. And here is what she told me on the phone this afternoon. What I saw was a huge, perfectly round sphere with no tail, no fire, just glowing like a bluish-white LED light and moving fast and not too far from where I was driving. I couldn't hear any sound from it, and then suddenly this perfectly round, glowing sphere went straight down toward the nearby tree line. Close quote. And I asked her if she meant that it did a 90-degree angle, and she said probably because it was going on a gradual angle downward until it just dropped straight down behind the tree line. I was expecting a huge explosion from the trees because it was moving so fast and powerfully. I was even afraid I might be caught in an explosion. But nothing happened. No light, no sound, just disappeared behind the trees. And I asked her if she stretched her arm out holding a dime, would the sphere have been bigger or smaller than the dime? And she said it would have been at least the size of a quarter held at arm's length. And that's pretty big when you realize that you can cover the full moon with the end of your little finger. And it was only the day before that I had received a voicemail from a Pine Bush, New York resident who said that he was seeing unidentified aerial lights and UFOs there, a place that has for a long time been famous for UFO sightings. And this Pine Bush, New York, is 115 miles straight north of Freeborough, where this teacher was this morning, Freehold. And that if in that 115 miles, if there is beginning to be maybe the beginning of a UFO flap, I would love to hear from any of you out there who live in that corridor, in that area. Reminds me of back in the 80s when there were the big boomerangs that were going up and down in the New York area and even into New Jersey. But I would love to know if anybody has seen an uptick and any mysteries in the sky just in the last, let's say, few weeks, and to email me at earthfiles@earthfiles.com and let me know. And always, when you think of my email, just remember a reporter who files news about the Earth. So that's earthfiles@earthfiles.com. Now, another headline, which was today, it's a little further west from the East Coast. It's in Youngstown, Warren, Ohio. And NBC TV's Channel 21 WFMJ headline, quote, "Loud boom noises in Brookfield Township, Ohio remain a mystery." Quote, "No source has been confirmed for loud explosion-type noises reported in Brookfield. While some people still suspect the boom sounds are connected to local injection wells, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources says it has found nothing to support that. The Brookfield injection wells have been a subject of controversy since permits were first granted, and these latest complaints concern loud explosion-type noises. But one of the residents there, Gloria Douglas, she lives right near the well. She said, quote, "It's a very distinct sound. It's something you've not heard here before, and it's loud, very loud. It's like an explosion. I call it an explosion boom." Authorities did look at seismic monitoring devices, and there was no seismic data. A police report said the booms might have been from firearms on a property that was near where the well site was, but residents right there did not accept that as an explanation. One nearby resident told reporters, quote, "It was so loud. In fact, the recent boom noise shook their houses," close quote. So far, like so many other parts in the United States experiencing loud, mysterious booms, the Ohio authorities don't have any answers either. Now, after Ohio, on January 5th, 2019, Fox 13 News in Salt Lake City, Utah headlined, "Lots of theories, but still no official word about what caused mysterious booms felt and heard across northern Utah around Ogden." Quote, "People across northern Utah reported feeling and hearing what seemed like a sonic boom Saturday, January 5th. The boom happened around 11 a.m. and was especially felt in Ogden and surrounding cities. Calls and emails flowed into the Fox 13 newsroom asking what caused the boom," close quote. Well, people guessed that it might be Hill Air Force Base, but when Fox News checked with Hill, they said it was not them. And in fact, one South Ogden resident named Jeff Parker said that he heard and felt two separate sonic booms that were very different from those that were known by residents around Hill Air Force Base. Parker told Fox News, "It was more intense than jets. It was like a cross between a sonic boom and an earthquake tremor. Again, the shaking. It's more of this shaking of houses, shaking of ground. Checks with the U.S. Geological Survey got a no. There has not been any recent seismic activity in the northern Utah area." And then the question was raised, could it be snow avalanches in that area of ski resorts? But when the news department went to the Snowbaskin Ski Resort, the answer was, we haven't had any avalanches. The Fox News 13 report then concluded that one more popular theory had been presented to them by Ogden resident Jeff Parker. Quote, "I think it's aliens from outer space." Parker said, "I've never seen an alien, But could I rule them out? I don't rule anything out, close quote. And for those of you who have been following my Earth Files news reports since January of 2011, it's 8 years ago. For 8 years, I have been reporting about these strange booms with the same, it's like we've now got a template. Authorities go to seismic, they go to local airports, they go to the military, they go to fracking, they go to all of the, we'll call them more normal and usual suspects. And here's a long list of no's, leaving hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of boom reports in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Central America, South America, Australia, New Zealand, Europe. The same phenomenon and no answers. What could be going on that would create these explosive booms? And with the iPhones, we're now getting more audio sounds. I'm thinking about going through the last 8 or 9 years of where I know that there are some videotapes, putting them all together and then just running for a minute or two the sounds that people have been recording. And they are, I understand when people say that it's like an explosive boom because both of those qualities are there. And then in some of these reports recently, which does include Phoenix and Glendale, Arizona, I reported about that in the last couple of weeks, and I have those reports at Earth Files. There have been flashes, bright flashes of light that have gone along with the sound of the booms. And again, I would encourage anyone out there who is coming to my YouTube channel who may have any information, even if it is confidential, or you feel that you're working for an agency, you might have some information, you can communicate to me that we can switch into a protected venue like Proton Mail or FedEx, because there is something about the persistence of these strange, unexplained booms that keep happening, and a lot of them are happening in cycles, that there must be an explanation that is leading up to something. Or another possibility is that something is happening inside of our own planet, maybe at the core, that is generating something out into the magma that is causing, for reasons unclear, these strange boom sounds. Maybe that's reaching, but that's why we need help from anybody who might have information. I would sure like to be able to report, even if it's from an anonymous agency source. Now, another strange mystery was reported yesterday in Lewisburg, Tennessee's Marshall County. NBC's Channel 4 headline, quote, "Mystery surrounding disappearing water from Marshall County pond." This is a big mystery unfolding about an hour south of Nashville, and as the reporter said, it's very strange. The pond is in the backyard of a woman named Patsy Wright. It's been there for 100 years, but this is the very first time that it has suddenly gone empty. Now, the owner told the News 4 channel on Saturday, just recently, that her pond was full of water. 1 minute she was watching this, and then she said something fell from the sky, and here's her quote. "When I saw those waves go up like it did, and then they came back down, and I heard this splash." I mean, it was a big splash. It's something that she could not explain, like something falling into her pond. And she walks down with her dog and says, "Sure as the world, no water." It was completely gone. What was left was a massive hole in the bottom of where the water was just a minute or so before. The hole was too deep to tell if there was an object inside. The woman said that she knows most people will probably think it is a sinkhole, a sudden sinkhole, but she remains adamant about seeing something falling from the sky into it before the water all disappeared. And she said, quote, to the TV reporter, "I know something hit because I heard it. I thought, I'm not imagining this, it's there." Wright has filed a report with the Marshall County Sheriff's Office, and her next plan of action is to get in touch with the Environmental Protection Agency so that they can investigate further. This whole idea that geophysical changes are ongoing in our planet now. What was it, 3 weeks ago, when that volcano under the ocean in Indonesia, it collapsed and suddenly caused a tsunami. There was no warning because it was under the ocean when it collapsed, and that's what set the ocean. And now something has fallen into a pond and the water has disappeared. What will it take to get some investigators to go down into that hole? That's what needs to happen next. Maybe there can be some effort to do that. But in all of this geophysical high strangeness, I thought tonight, before we went to questions and answers, that I would share with you something that has meant a great deal to me in my constant question about who we are, what we are, and my conviction that the soul is the most important part, and the part that seems to be left out in this increasingly stressful day-to-day feeling of too much to do and not enough help on a planet that seems itself to be changing. Politics are changing. So many things are changing. And that in all of that stress, there are reports of increasing teenage suicides in some places, and all of the drugs and the opioids, as if a lot of people are trying literally to stamp out life, to disconnect. If we knew that our soul, the part that is unseen but can be felt, for those of you who are sensitive and have been sending me incredible letters and emails about your own experiences with what you feel and sense and know as your soul. It seems that one of the things that I can do periodically at the Earth Files YouTube channel is to tell you some of the experiences that I've had in my life that have convinced me that the soul is alive, the soul is the animator of our matter world, and that if you pay attention to what it does, it can give you strength when everything seems to be falling apart. I'm going back to the year 1994, and my father, at age 86, having lived an amazing life, strong, walking 3 miles a day until he literally collapsed on the living room floor, and my mom found him at age 84, because we finally learned that in the decade leading up to that collapse in the living room, a doctor had told him that he had fibromyalgia because he had pain in his legs. And when he collapsed and went to a hospital doctor, they diagnosed that he had advanced prostate cancer that was causing the pain in his legs, and that had been what had been happening for a decade. And my dad was strong enough to just keep walking through the pain. That was a mantra he had. Linda, just walk through any pain. Just keep going. And so for 10 years, without knowing, none of us knowing, that he had a cancer that was attacking his body, as long as he walked those 3 miles, we thought he was fine until that day. And I flew in with my brother, and we went to the cancer doctor. And we were there with Mom when the doctor said, "You have 2 years." And almost 2 years to the day, I got a call from a nurse, emergency call, where I was living in Philadelphia. Your father is going to pass soon. You and your brother need to come. And within hours of that phone call, I met my brother in Boise, Idaho, and we went to the nursing home where he was in a bed. They had transferred him into a medical part of this nursing home. And the last time I had seen my father was just 1 year before. And it was to visit my mom, who was there also. And he was elegantly dressed. He always was elegantly dressed. And at 85 then, he looked like he could go on forever. So the shock to my brother and me was to be with Dad as his last heavy breathing took him to another place. A lot happened in that hospital that began my conviction that as Dad's body, the matter body, was passing, something else was in that room, and it was strong, and it knew my brother, and it knew me, and it knew Mom was downstairs, and a whole series of miraculous events occurred to bring us all four together before his last breath. Mom and my brother and me next to Dad. Mom left the room. My brother and I were there. Mom came, asked us to join her. And everything in me was, we shouldn't leave, but Mom is taking us. She wants us to go with her. And we were not gone more than 15 minutes. And that's when the nurse came and said, your dad has stopped breathing. And I ran back to the room. I ran back. And the sound that he had been making was gone, and it was completely silent. And my brother came right behind me. And it was as if this strong force that I had been feeling took me over and said, literally was a guidance. Stand at your father's head and do not leave. So I went, stood next to my father's head. My brother and I were both crying. My brother came and stood next to me. We're both, it was like somehow my brother knew and I knew that we had to be where we were, right at Dad's head. A nurse came in and said, you can leave now. We said, no, we can't. And about 30 minutes later, with the nurses coming and probably irritated, but my having this strong feeling we had to do what we were doing, there was this thought voice, now you can leave. It would be later on that night, I had the Tibetan Book of the Dead with me. I opened it up to a chapter, and what words did I open up to? That in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, that it is vital that some trusted family member stay at the head of the passing relative for about 30 minutes to an hour to protect that matter space from anything that could be parasitic, so that the soul can transition out and leave. Now, where that connects, that was in June. I went back to Philadelphia after the funeral. My brother called me one night and said, Linda, I'm having so many problems. I keep sobbing. My brother, military helicopter pilot, we were both. And I told him the same thing. I said, I'm having such a hard time getting past the grief. So we had had that phone conversation. And probably it was about a week or two after talking to my brother about how it was such an ache of Dad's passing. I was sitting in a chair that I used for Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell. And I was working and writing on a script. And my cat then was one chamois, a big white fluffy cat. He had a tail that just went straight up like a pole, and hair fell from it. And Chamois came walking in toward me, and I knew he was going to jump up. He loved to jump up when I was writing scripts and stay in my lap. So I said, "Hi, Chamois," and he spun just like 180 degrees, and his head went up like a pointer dog instead of a fluffy cat. And I was in a house that was built like a Victorian house in Philadelphia with 14-foot ceilings, really tall ceilings. And that's where he's looking right up at the corner, right across. Here was the bed, here was the chair where I was. My radio equipment was on the floor that I did Dreamland and Coast to Coast. And there was a dresser of books, and there was this corner, and it had an artificial ficus-looking tree that I kept lights on, like a Christmas thing. And I couldn't understand because he just froze. So I got up, and even when I got up, Chamois was just frozen looking. So I walked around the bed, and I walked over to where that ficus tree was, and I leaned in, thinking maybe there was an insect in here. And as I leaned in to that ficus tree, it was just like instantaneously, it felt like a warm shower. It felt like water, but I'm not getting wet. It was a warm shower. And in the warmth of the shower, I found myself, "Dad, it's you, you're back." And as soon as I said that, Chamois went out of his frozen, jumped up on the bed, came over to where I was, and I knew that my father, in a form I could not see with my human retina, was there. Not on the floor, up in this corner somehow of this 14-foot ceiling. And then what happened over the next, for 2 weeks, 14 days, I would leave, go downstairs. I had stairs that went down 2 floors and another stairs that went up to a film editing room. I would come to the landing to go down the stairs, and I would feel like the lightest touch on the back of my hair, always at the same step. And I'd say, "Oh, Dad, can you stay? Don't go." And there would always be this touch on my hair, and I knew it was my father. And there was nothing about it that was scary, and the cats never reacted. I just knew that my father was there. And on the 14th day, having all my grief left, I started being just back to my spontaneous, happy, joyful self. As long as Dad was there and could do this miraculous that I don't understand how another dimension interacts, but it did. And on that 14th day in the afternoon, I was going downstairs, felt that on my hair, and for some reason, at that moment, I remember I stopped. Where before I would just keep going, I stopped. And as I stopped, and I put my hands out on the banisters, this thought voice that has protected me and helped me throughout my whole life, it had a different resonance. And it came this way: "You are in great danger, and I am going to try to protect you." And I knew that was my father, different from the thought voice. It was my father How is he doing that? How is he putting his coherent thoughts? And as that came in, and I'm still holding on to the banister, it was just like so many of these strange events in my life that seem like there's a penetration that comes from another dimension, and it's my soul. It isn't the matter brain. It's my soul that understands what's happening. It's my soul that's interacting with this event. And my soul seemed to sense there was a rheostating down, and I remember clearly saying out loud, "Dad, Dad, don't go, please don't go, stay." But I could feel it. I could feel it going. And I never ever had that touch on the back of my hair again. Tying to that, what was going on in that 1994 time period, in 1993, that I was in danger. I personally know that it was in those 2 years that it was the beginning of my trying to reach out to people who had some firsthand information about certain activities that agencies were carrying out concerning trying to communicate with specific craft technologies and frequencies. And I was getting information from people that I think had firsthand information, all related, again, to this same effort to try to find out what is the truth about an alien presence on our planet that our government knows about, the Russian government knows about, the Chinese government knows about, our allies of World War II. The ones that are left out are the rest of humanity. You, me, everyone. We are subjected to enforced ignorance on subjects that I think are too important for us to be ignorant about. So I don't know precisely what happened in 93 to 94 that my father, in another dimension, knew and was able to come in to my life in this dimension in this comforting way and leave telling me he was going to try to protect me. But for those of you who have read my 2-volume Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1 and 2, in Volume 2, I have a section about 1993 to 1994 with what I call the writers. And those were the analysts working for the National Security Agency and the Central Intelligence Agency who went to Ray Boucher in Nebraska to talk with him about eschatology, the end of the world. And in those discussions, they asked him specifically if he would ask me to get to them my first book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1, because I hadn't written Volume 2 yet. It took 8 years to do those 2 books. And that's when they communicated to me in floppy disks about questions that I had and information that they wanted me to know. And one of the most sobering sentences in 93, 94, or any year that I've been trying to get to the bottom of what is the alien presence on our planet, under our planet, and beyond, one of the sentences that they wrote to me on a floppy disk said, "We are dealing with NHEs, non-human entities, that deceive, and that when it came to the question of agenda, they wrote to me in 93 to 94 that some of what they were dealing with were hostile. And they used this phrase, these are entities that are neither benign nor neutral. What do they want if they're not neutral? Who and what are they if they are not benign? I don't know which part of everything that was happening in 1993 to 1994 that my father had access to when he communicated his very last communication to me. You are in great danger, and I am going to try to protect you. Dad, you did a good job. I'm still here. And on that note, I would like to go to any questions that you all might have, and a sincere desire to hear from any of you who may have had anything similar happen to you in your life with loved ones passing, and then coming out with the knowledge and conviction that the soul does survive and the soul can communicate to us in this matter world, and that we have got to move ourselves forward to being a civilization of humanoids in this big universe in the Milky Way galaxy that begins to understand, study, reach out to our very own souls, to ask for help, to ask for communication, to ask for protection. If we all did that with each other, and we were all playing with the same knowledge, I just really feel this planet would change so quickly from war and death and entropy and up with light, my mantra on my t-shirts. And so with that, Lori, I hope that you are there and that we have some questions, and I would love to talk with people.
You got it. So our first question tonight is, why have there been no additional pictures from China on the moon?
Well, this is an interesting question, and I wish I had a factual answer. I was reading some of the stories today. I'm not going to even try to second guess tonight what could be happening. They may have had a technical problem. They may have had, remember, and one thing, here are facts. Orbiting around the moon, they've got an orbiter so that they can get signals from China up there and then down to the backside of the moon. Imagine that this big ball, let's say that that I'm the Earth and my hand is the moon, and that they're over here and I'm here, and we can't send signals through the moon, radio signals. We have to have something that picks up the signals and then has a way to convey them around to the backside. Something might have gone awry that we don't know. And we don't have really inside knowledge beyond what the press release was, that they were going to send their little rover. They've done what we would do. You have an orbiter, you send down a lander, and the lander sends out a little orbiter that goes out with the idea that they're going to do something very important, if they can find it, is sample any mantle crust that has erupted in that part of where they landed. The whole idea is that where they landed was clearly a place where something came, slammed in to the backside of the moon. Tremendous pressure. They've been able to find that from photos, and pushed up some of the mantle. And there was a period of time, which is why the front of the moon has all of those dark spatches, like the Sea of Tranquility is all dark. That's where Apollo 11 landed. That's on the front side of the moon. So there was lava that came up. To think of volcanoes with cones, that's not right. It is lava and hot mantle over periods that, for reasons that are still really not clear, why did all of this come on the front side of the moon that does not turn away from the Earth? On the back side of the moon, if you go to Earth Files in the stories that I have done on the Chinese lander and other stories, I've shown the back side of the moon and the front side. The back side looks completely different. It's all pockmarked with so many more craters, and I think there's only 1 or 2 areas where there's been any kind of the lava seeped up like it did on the front of the moon. Well, one of the things I know that China has announced that they wanted to try was to get the rover to find anything that might fit into that category of uplifted mantle, because there are so many questions about where did our moon really come from. The classic is that it tore away from whatever it was that caused the asteroid belt and ended up colliding maybe with the Earth and then turning into the moon. And then there are others who, in the abduction, a lot of people in the human abduction syndrome over the decades have been shown either holographic or been told or had downloads or dreams or something, that the moon is actually a machine. Now I'm speaking not from the science of Earth, I'm speaking from this huge, vast, fascinating knowledge base that comes through people in the human abduction syndrome. And when they talk about that the moon is a machine, they're talking about it being hollow. One of the ones leading, did a book with, talks about this, is Brian Scott, the Brian Scott case from the 70s, who went to Peru and became Voltar, and some alien intelligence was working through him. He said that the moon was a machine, the inside was hollow, had computers, was under the control of gray beings. The gray beings considered the moon their territory. That's in the Brian Scott case. So your question opens up this fan. What is astronomical historic fact? What is geophysical fact? What could be alien presence fact? That's what I wish we knew all of the true answers. And all I can say is I will keep trying to find out what is happening to the China mission, and I'll keep reporting at Earthfiles, so keep going to earthfiles.com, and I will keep trying to update. And then every Wednesday when I do the YouTube channel, I'm really going to try to always have updating news. I may, in fact, next week or the week after, I may have truly a very interesting update about sunspot solar. Sometimes it takes a while for truth to come out about some of these Earth mysteries. And so I always feel like I should say, I wish I could give you answers like this all the time. But it took 8 years to do Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 1 and 2. And we'll see what the Chinese report tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And by next Wednesday, maybe I'll have an update. So thank you for the question. And Lori, what about another?
Well, that's kind of a good segue. The next question is Linda going to be writing any new books? Maybe a Glimpses 3?
Wow. I'll tell you exactly. Last year, I started writing what would be an autobiography of this incredible life I have had. And it was I use that word, incredible, because when I started filling up a spiral notebook with all of the pieces, like if you looked at me as, one of those kaleidoscopes and you turn and there's thousands and thousands of pieces. There have been so many thousands and thousands of pieces in my life that have led up to this moment, that when I started filling up a spiral notebook that was an inch thick and realizing if I actually took all of the pieces in my life, it would be volumes, and nobody does an autobiography that's in volumes. So I have been in the process of, while I'm doing all of this current day news, current conferences, the dialogues with you, the interaction with Earth Files, always in the back of my head is something that it's forming differently. If I try to explain to you what I think is happening in my mind, a braid is starting to be formed. Things are starting to come in to focus. That if I go this direction and this direction, and then take time off, that's the other part. What I realized, starting with the spiral notebook last year, is that there is no way that I can live the 7 a.m. to midnight or 1 a.m. life that I have every day of my life and love it. No complaining, I'm not whining. I love it. But I can't do 7 a.m. to midnight or 1 every day with as full as it is already. And then when you write a book, at least this is what happened to me on the 4 books that I have done. I guess life was not as hectic as it is now, because on those 4 books, I literally pulled myself out of life, meaning all of the things. I feel like I'm keeping 12 plates going every day now in so many different facets. And to do the books that I've done, I go into, or have gone into, like a tunnel where you don't talk to anybody, you don't interact, you hardly go to the post office. Everything is coming through your soul. The soul has to be involved, and your mind, and sitting in front of a computer and trying to make what's in your mind and your heart and your soul of what you are trying to get across that may be of some value to other human beings, because I think that's what an autobiography, the goal should be. Here are the facets of this life that took me into hundreds of mysteries, that had an interaction around my father's passing that convinced me of the reality of the soul. That there's so many pieces that if we all could share those pivotal moments of our life that give us strength, help us keep going, make us want to get up, make us want to do something that maybe will help other people, will communicate, will solve mysteries, will be revolutionary and change this planet. That's my goal, to help change this planet from all the concocted lies to being on a planet that was just trying to deal with the truth of the universe that we're in and what we are. It's how do you get that into the digital zeros and ones, out onto paper, and do it 100 times? Because with all those other 4 books that are at the Earth File shop, I went through so many drafts, and each draft you want to go deeper and wider. And writing a book, for me, it's really a complex in a tunnel process. And so I have to say, a period would come, I would do no radio, no conferences, no YouTube channel, no anything. Say, okay, I'm going to dedicate the next 2 months, 3 months to do my autobiography. And then as soon as I say, well, that's the only way I can do it, another part of me says, no, you can't do the autobiography until that big headline comes out, we're not alone in this universe. And that's where I am right now, that I don't want to go into any tunnel. I want to stay in this energetic effort every day, trying, hoping it will happen sooner than later. I don't care what the problems are. I don't think you should care what the problems are about telling that truth to this planet. We are not alone in this universe. And we have to get to a planet that stops lying about that. And once that day happens, I hope it's in 2019. I had made bets for 2018. Now I'm making bets for 2019. And maybe once that happens, I'll say, hey, you guys, I'm going to go into that tunnel for 3 or 4 months, and I'm going to try to get my soul, my guts, my heart out onto paper and to zeros and ones. So pray for me. Is there one more?
Yes, actually, I think this is the perfect question to end with, and you started to segue into it, really. This is from one of our good friends named Tim. Linda, if for some reason you don't get that headline, we are not alone in the universe, and is proven in your lifetime, would you feel cheated or regretful?
That's a really good question. I think I would be angry. I think I would really be angry if, after everything that I have been through, and for 40 years I have been trying to get to the bottom of so many different truths that have been presented to our civilization in total lie form by governments. And to feel like that my soul had a destiny that I didn't understand until I did a strange harvest about the animal mutilations. That my very soul had its mission. This just carried my soul around. That my very soul is what is determined, along with lots of other souls that are here. That this is a planet that has been abused, misused, manipulated, harvested. That other intelligences who know how to mix and match genes manipulated DNA in already evolving primates very, very long time ago to make Homo erectus in Africa. And we're just the latest model. I care about this latest model. I don't think that we should kill ourselves. I don't think other life in the universe should come here and kill us. I think that we are drowning in ignorance, which leads to all the tribal warfare, or allows for it. But it's not because Homo sapiens sapien humans, you, me, and the 7.5 billion on this planet, in which there are a lot of androids. I think there are androids, and I think there are clones, and I think there are hybrids. And for the humans who may not be so advanced, we do have strong souls. I'm convinced of that. I don't know if that's true about cyborgs. I don't know if that's true about hybrids. It's not making any judgment about the androids and the cyborgs and the clones and the hybrids. I'm sure they are all necessary, and I'm sure that Homo sapiens sapien, roly-poly human, will end up making all of those if we are allowed to survive. It's the fundamental insight that 40 years of trying to get to the bottom of all this has brought me. We are manipulated. We are manipulated by alien intelligences. That's the truth. It has been the truth from the beginning of the manipulation of the standing up primate, Homo erectus. And whichever number model we are, we're manipulated too. We're just more sophisticated. And we are beginning to catch on. And I think that our government caught on a long, long time ago in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, when they had that crashed wedge-shaped craft, and there were clones. They weren't stupid in 1941. Detlef Bronk and those medical people, they knew a lot. And when they had those bodies and they did those autopsies on those bodies that went with that wedge-shaped craft, that the documents that I have least heard, that they referred to them as celestial craft and celestial beings back at that time. And you had FDR and Truman and George Marshall, the Secretary of War, and they would have wanted to know what those bodies were as fast as possible. And they found out they were clones. They were identical cellular structure. At that point in 1941, we weren't in World War II. But over in Germany, Adolf Hitler, I think word had been spreading out that he said that he had some grand weapons and was going to take over the world and make tall, blonde Aryans be the rulers of the world, and he was going to eliminate all the Hebrews, and that all this guidance was coming to him from something from outer space. So our government, the Allies, boy, they must have been nervous. They must have been running scared when they did an autopsy and found out that those bodies in Cape Girardeau were clones. Because here's the question behind that data point. If there are clones at a wedge-shaped craft in Cape Girardeau, Missouri in April of 1941, who made the clones? Where are the clone makers? If I were President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and I received that information, I would think, where are they? Where are the makers of these clones? Did they ever get an answer? Probably. And the one thing that tonight I would close with, and it ties into the same challenge that I have in trying to do an autobiography, is that in the beginning, in 1979, I'm going to shut off my constant email. In the beginning of my work in September of 1979, not knowing anything, except that there were animals all over the place that were being found with no blood and no tracks, with the same excisions, missing organs without outside surgery, and that when I talked with law enforcement, they whispered to me, or said, as Sheriff Tex Graves did face to face, "Linda, the perpetrators are creatures from outer space." In the beginning, I thought there would be one simple answer. One simple answer. Maybe a government testing project, of contaminants in the environment. But the law enforcement said no, it's creatures from outer space, because ranchers see the animals go up in beams of light and round craft, and animals come down into pastures where they're found, and there's no blood and there's no tracks and there's organs missing and there's no external surgeries. It's definitely something from outer space. So one answer goes to a second answer that is so big, so unknown, and 40 years later I sit in front of you, and the number of paths that I have walked trying to get to the bottom of who and what is behind the animal mutilations and why. Who or what is behind the human abduction syndrome and why. Who or what created what appears to have been electrical bulbs that glowed with light and are carved inside of the Dendera pyramid in Egypt. It was clearly technology carved in those stones. And pretty soon, when did government policies of denial begin? How far back in our history? Anunnaki and Sumeria and on and on. The layers and layers and layers of lies through centuries serves who? Same question in many ways of FDR getting data that 3 clones came in that wedge-shaped craft in Missouri in 1941. What did they find out about the bodies in 1947 in the Roswell region? None of that has been reported to us, really. I now can say there's no easy answer. There are multiple answers to the question of, are there friendly alien intelligences? That comes from the remote viewers and government insiders. Yeah, multiple allies. Great. Lots of neutrals. Why are they neutral? And some hostiles. Very unfriendly. Why would something in this universe be hostile to poor, dumb, blind humans on planet Earth? Maybe all of it at the biggest box comes back to the soul. Maybe we have strong, incredible souls, and maybe they don't. If that were truly where the line in the sand is drawn on what's important and what is desired and why there are devious battles in the cosmos, you and I and everyone in the human category on this planet deserves the truth about that. That's what I'm going to keep trying to fight for. That's what I hope we will get headlines about. And then I'll tell you, I'm going to take time away and I'm going to try to get my soul out on some paper for an autobio. Until then, I'm going to keep trying to come here every Wednesday night, keep doing Coast, keep doing Ancient Aliens. I'm working on several other TV projects. I keep doing Earth Files. It's now almost 20, I think it's 2,800 something reports in there, in depth, and hoping that all of you will help me keep feeling this energy that I feel like, Linda, you have to hang in there and keep fighting for the truth and for the light. And as long as you keep you tell everybody that you know to keep coming here on Wednesday nights. If we can grow and grow our audience, then we're reaching more and more people. Maybe that will help this leverage point on Earth reach that point we all need, where governments, no matter what, will tell us the truth. Hey, thanks. And Fluffy is still here.